This is you! You are standing on the podium of honor under the blinding glare of camera flashes. The Director of Customs himself personally pins a gold medal on your chest for seizing 5 tons of cocaine last week. You smile at the cameras with practiced humility, shake firm hands, and give a moving speech about the sacred importance of justice and duty. However, there is a dirty truth that no one in this room knows. Just 3 days ago, you yourself allowed 5 trucks full of white powder to cross the border without any inspection under your strict supervision. But before judging you, we need to rewind the tape to understand exactly why a man of the law decided to sell his soul to the devil. 5 years ago, you were the star rookie, the honors graduate of the Security Academy, who blindly believed in the system. You threw yourself into the work like a bloodhound, working double shifts without rest and arresting smugglers non-stop. But heroism has a fatal flaw. It doesn't pay the bills. When the end of the month came, you would hold your paycheck and feel like crying. That miserable money had to be split 5 ways to pay for rent, electricity, and to send something to your elderly mother back in the village. The breaking point for your dignity came on an ordinary Sunday. You took your pregnant wife to the supermarket to buy the basics for the baby on the way. At the cash register with a line of impatient people behind you, the nightmare happened. The cashier looked at you with pity and said those 2 words that destroy any man's ego card: declined. Your credit limit had been reached. With your face burning with shame, you had to return the powdered milk and diapers under the judgmental stares of strangers. On the way home, to add to your misery, your old car broke down in the middle of the road. The repair cost was equal to your entire monthly salary. While you were pushing that heap of junk under the sun, you looked across the street. You saw a small-time criminal you had arrested yourself at the beginning of the month. Now he was free and driving a shiny new pickup truck. He recognized you, rolled down the window, and gave you a mocking smile while you were sweating and pushing your broken car. At that exact moment, something snapped inside you. You realized that justice is a very beautiful concept, but justice doesn't put food on the table. With your morale at rock bottom after the supermarket incident, you take refuge in a dive bar to drown your shame. Their fate crosses your path with Carlos, an old classmate who dropped out of the police academy halfway through. But life has a cruel sense of humor. While you look like a beggar with a badge, Carlos is wearing a designer suit and a solid gold watch. After a few drinks, he reveals his secret. He works in unofficial logistics. He knows you're desperate and makes you a smooth offer. He tells you he has a container with iPhones and electronic components stuck at the port. He just needs you to suffer from temporary blindness for 5 minutes. He swears there are no weapons or drugs. It's just a little tax evasion from the government. He places a thick envelope on the table, containing the equivalent of 6 months of your salary. You look at the money, and then remember the look of disgust from the supermarket cashier. You justify it by thinking that politicians steal millions every day, so taking this is just a fair reimbursement. You put the envelope away. The next day, the truck passes right in front of you, and you simply look at your phone. With the money, you clear your debts and buy new things for your unborn daughter. That night, you sleep like a baby, convinced of your new ethical rule. You will only smuggle goods to evade taxes, but you will absolutely never get involved with drugs. Your financial life has drastically improved thanks to the passive income from protecting electronics. But easy money has a dangerous side effect. It makes you arrogant and impatient. You are no longer the friendly officer you once were. You have become a greedy gatekeeper, demanding your toll. If a shipment doesn't pay the overtime fee, or the lubrication bonus, it faces your bureaucratic wrath. One day, a truck loaded with supposedly fine ceramics refuses to pay your commission. The driver thinks being clean is enough. Grave mistake. You decide to turn his day into an administrative hell. You raise your hand and shout with an authority that makes the asphalt tremble. Stop! Red light inspection. You walk slowly around the vehicle looking for any excuse. You take out a portable density meter and scan the walls of the container. In a condescending teacher's tone, you explain to your rookie subordinate so that the driver can hear you. You tell him that the ceramic is hollow, but the machine indicates an unusually high material density in the panels. You assure him that physics doesn't lie and that this suggests lead sheets or hidden contraband in the walls. With a sadistic smile, you order the 5 tons of merchandise to be unloaded under the scorching sun. You take a sledgehammer and smash the container's lining. Bingo. Behind the metal bottles of bootleg liquor appear. The driver breaks down in tears at the astronomical fine you impose on him, ruining his career. But your morality is selective. Immediately after Carlos's truck of electronic components arrives, on the X-ray scanner screen, ghost shadows and irregular shapes clearly appear screaming danger. Any honest officer would sound the alarm, but you with absolute calm seal the approval documents. You tell your team, with a completely made-up technical lie delivered with a poker face to relax, that it's just a display error caused by magnetic interference from the circuits. The truck passes without any problems. One ordinary day, Carlos calls you with an emergency. He needs you to approve a shipment of avocados immediately because they are supposedly rotting in the heat. You see the truck approaching in the distance. On a normal day, you would let it pass without looking to collect your check. But today, you have an audience. There is a new recruit by your side, and your ego decides to put on a little show of authority to impress him. You raise your hand and shout the command, "Stop red light inspection." You approach the cab and notice that the driver is sweating buckets, trembling, even though the air conditioning is running at full power. Your customs officer instinct, the one you thought was dormant, suddenly wakes up. You take a pocket knife and cut open one of the avocados at random. What you find inside makes your blood run cold. Instead of a pit, there is a compact block of white powder. It is pure cocaine. You go into an absolute panic. You call Carlos and scream at him furiously that he has broken the sacred pact not to touch drugs. Carlos shows up shortly after, but he is no longer the submissive classmate who used to buy you drinks. Now, he has the cold, calculating look of a true kingpin. Without saying a word, he throws an envelope onto your desk. Opening it, you see high-resolution photos. There you are receiving dirty money at the bar, and even worse, photos of your daughter riding her new bicycle in the park. He tells you in a calm voice that you are too talented to be a simple low-ranking officer and that they need someone with higher authority. Cooperate with us, and next week the captain's chair will be yours. At that moment, you realize that you were never a partner. You were always prey being fattened up for the slaughterhouse. Swallowing your pride and your fear, you turn to your subordinates and order the truck to be released, shouting that it was just a false alarm from the scanner. A week later, just as the devil promised, the official letter of your promotion appears on your desk. The cash flow coming from the cartel is so absurd that you can no longer hide it under your mattress. You realize that to eat well and safely, you must invite others to the table. You start organizing extravagant weekend parties at 5-star resorts for your subordinates. Amidst rivers of expensive liquor and the company of beautiful women, you approach your most loyal colleagues. With a charming smile, you whisper in their ears about a golden opportunity to earn extra money. Of course you are a businessman, not a vulgar criminal, so you don't use the word drug trafficking. You use impeccable corporate language. You call it a business logistics support fee. However, some officers still have a pesky conscience and suspect the truth, trying to politely decline your offer. Grave mistake. In that second, your mask of a generous host falls, and you reveal the ruthless boss. You pull out your phone and show them detailed evidence of their small past sins that you have been quietly collecting, such as arriving late, accepting minor bribes from tourists, or skipping security protocols. You give them a brutal ultimatum. Either we all sail in the same boat toward wealth, or you make sure they drown alone in the misery of unemployment and internal investigations. Fear works much better than loyalty. Little by little, you weave a perfect web of complicity. You have the person in charge of the cameras deleting key recordings, and the K9 unit trainer feeding the dogs juicy steaks just before the critical hour, so they are too full and lazy to sniff out anything. The entire customs station now operates with the fluidity of a cartel subsidiary. To protect their market share, you received a strict order from the cartel. You had to intercept and stop any vehicle carrying drugs as long as it didn't belong to the organization. The irony is delicious. Thanks to this action of eliminating the competition, you were invited to the national television program called Silent Hero to celebrate your supposed extraordinary achievements. You appear in front of the cameras in your impeccable dress uniform without a single wrinkle. On your chest, the first-class Medal of Merit shines brightly. With oratory worthy of a politician, you speak passionately about sacrifice, honor, and the endless sleepless nights spent keeping the border safe. But just as you pronounce the word integrity, you feel a vibration in your pants pocket. It is your phone confirming that a massive transfer has just arrived in your secret Swiss account. When the show ends, you return home feeling like a rock star. Your young daughter runs to you and hugs you tightly, her eyes lighting up. She says to you in an excited voice, "Daddy, all my friends saw you on TV. You're a superhero who catches the bad guys, right?" You lift her in your arms, look directly into her innocent eyes, and answer her with a pride that knows no shame. You tell her, "Exactly, sweetheart. I am the terror of criminals. Nothing, not a single grain of powder crosses that border without my permission." At that moment, the strongest drug isn't cocaine, it's your own ego. You truly believe you have total control with money and fame in your hands. You feel like a king without a crown. A young officer named Matteo is assigned to your squad. Seeing him is like receiving a brutal punch from the past. He painfully reminds you of yourself 5 years ago, with his shoes worn out from patrolling, and that burning gaze of absolute hatred toward drugs. During a routine shift, Matteo intercepts a cartel truck. His instinct is sharp. He discovers cocaine hidden inside industrial barrels of spices and chili powder. Before he can call for backup, you grab his arm firmly and wave urgently to the driver to continue on his way. Before Matteo's stunned and confused gaze, you take him to the back patio for a smoke and give him some fatherly but poisonous advice. You tell him in a soft voice that they have their own laws here, that only small criminals get caught, but the big containers belong to strategic partners. You advise him to take the money for his expenses and not to try to be a hero, because heroes end up 6 feet under. You put a thick envelope in his hand, hoping to buy his silence. Matteo looks at the money and then looks at you. In a second, his eyes turn from admiration to absolute contempt. He shakes his head and tells you a sentence that will haunt you forever. He says he prefers to be poor and sleep soundly than to be rich by selling his soul to the devil. His integrity leaves you speechless. You walk away, choosing the coward's path. You don't report him to Carlos, but you don't protect him either. You decide to look the other way. The next morning, you receive the news you feared. Matteo was crushed by a truck that supposedly lost its brakes while he was on his way home. You feel nauseous, and the world spins because you recognize the license plate in the police report. It was the same truck you let pass yesterday. You personally signed his death warrant. At the funeral, you stand solemnly in front of his closed casket to read the eulogy. You speak of his sacrifice and his bravery with a steady voice, but with every word of praise about his honesty, you feel the last remaining human part of you wither and die for good. To flee the accusing gaze of Matteo that haunts your every dream, you decide to take an urgent leave of absence and take your wife and daughter to a famous coastal city known as a haven for relaxation. You hold the naive hope that the salty breeze and the sound of the sea will wash away the invisible bloodstain you carry on your hands. But the irony of fate is cruel. You discover too late that the cartel's tentacles are endless and have reached even this peaceful refuge. While walking with your family along the tourist boardwalk, enjoying an ice cream, you see a crowd gathering around the flashing red lights of an ambulance. Curiosity gets the better of you, and you look over people's shoulders. What you see paralyzes you. A teenager no older than your own nephew is convulsing violently on the ground, foaming at the mouth. Beside him, his mother screams with a pain so gut-wrenching it makes the soul tremble, pleading with the paramedics to save her boy. Your expert eye recognizes the symptoms instantly, And worse yet, you recognize the substance. They are those blue fentanyl pills, exactly the same batch you allowed to cross the border last week with your signature of approval. At that moment, you feel a small hand squeezing yours. Your daughter looks up at you with her big eyes full of fear and confusion. She asks you in a trembling voice, "Daddy, you're the policeman who catches the bad guys right. Why don't you stop the man who sold that poison to the boy?" That innocent question pierces your chest more painfully than a high-caliber bullet. A knot forms in your throat, and bile rises up your esophagus. You can't answer her. You can't tell her that the man who allowed that to happen is the one holding her hand. You only manage to let out a nervous, empty laugh, avoid her gaze, and drag your family away from the crime scene you facilitated. Your pride as a hero crumbles, leaving only a deep self-loathing. That night in the presidential suite of the luxury hotel, sleep is impossible. The relaxing sound of the waves transforms in your ears into the gut-wrenching screams of the mother you saw that afternoon. The darkness of the room begins to play macabre tricks on your mind. The shadows in the corners come to life, taking the form of Mateo's mangled body and the pale face of the dying teenager, both staring fixedly at you from the shadows. You close your eyes tightly, trying to block out the horror, and you repeat a white lie to yourself over and over. Everything will be fine. Tomorrow is another day. After the nightmare trip, you return to the office with a determination of steel. You must stop this before it is too late. You seek out Carlos and tell him firmly that you want to take early retirement for health reasons. You offer to return a large portion of your earnings in exchange for your total freedom. On the other end of the line, there is a long, heavy silence. Then he hangs up without saying a single word, neither yes nor no. That silence causes you unbearable anxiety. That same afternoon, upon arriving home, you find a gift box wrapped in luxurious red paper at the front door. You think it is a late gift from some relative for your daughter, and you take it inside. But when you lift the lid, your heart stops. There are no toys or candy. Inside is the head of your daughter's favorite doll. The plastic neck has been jaggedly cut and is soaked in fresh red paint that mimics blood. Underneath you find a handwritten note with a brief but terrifying message: "Plastic heads can be replaced. Human heads cannot. Don't force me to visit your little princess while she sleeps." You fall to your knees on the floor, understanding the reality. The cartel entered your house. They entered your daughter's room to take that doll. The message is crystal clear. You will never be able to leave. You are their property until the day you die. Extreme fear causes your nervous system already at its limit to collapse. Hallucinations no longer wait for you to turn off the light. That night during dinner, in your luxurious and well-lit dining room, madness grips you. You look at your plate, and the hot, juicy steak transforms before your eyes into the doll's head, which moves its lips and laughs out loud at you. You run to the bathroom and vomit violently. You wash your hands in the sink, but the more you scrub the redder, the water becomes as if your pores were bleeding. You look up at the mirror and do not see your reflection. You see Mateo's pale face, the boy from the overdose, and thousands of unknown faces screaming in agony. Suddenly, Mateo lunges against the glass from the other side and yells at you, "Chief!" You suddenly snap awake in your chair. You are still at the dining table. Your wife and daughter look at you with eyes full of concern and fear. Your wife asks if you are okay. She says you have been staring into space, totally gone for an hour. You swallow the panic, force a smile, and lie once more, assuring her that you are just exhausted from work. After dinner, you get into the shower and scrub your skin hard until it's red, desperately trying to wash away the feeling of filth that the hallucinations left on you. While the water is running, the inevitable happens. Your wife, who has suspected you for months because of your mood swings, has gone down to the garage and found the black burner phone you hid under the car floor mat. Just at that moment, the device rings. She answers. On the other end, a subordinate's slurred voice says loud and clear, "Chief, the toy shipment goes through Gate 4 tonight. Remember to turn off the security cameras." You come out of the bathroom, drying yourself, and find a scene of terror. Your wife is standing in the middle of the room, pale as a ghost with the phone in her hand. You feel like the ground is opening up. You try to come up with a quick excuse, telling her in a trembling voice that she shouldn't touch your confidential work equipment. She looks at you with a mixture of pain and disgust and asks you directly, "So your official job is trafficking drugs?" The sentence leaves you frozen. She starts to cry, expressing her deep disappointment, and screams at you that she's taking your daughter away from this hell. At that moment, you lose control. Anger explodes inside you. You scream at her with fury that everything you did was for this house, for this family. You tell her that you had to become a demon so that they could live like queens. But she shakes her head and responds with a moral judgment that destroys you. "I would rather starve than live on money stained with human blood." When she tries to dial the police, absolute panic takes hold of you. You lunge at her like an animal, rip the phone away, and give her a brutal slap that throws her violently to the ground. The sound of the blow echoes, and then there is a deathly silence. You look up toward the bedroom door. There is your daughter. She is standing there, clutching her teddy bear tightly, her eyes wide open, filled with absolute terror. She no longer sees her father the superhero. She sees the monster. That look of childhood disappointment hurts you more than 1,000 stabs to the heart. Your wife gets up staggering, grabs the girl, and runs out of the house into the dark night, leaving you completely alone in the middle of your enormous, luxurious, empty mansion. The instant they cross the door, your mansion transforms into a house of horrors. The family portraits hanging on the walls begin to bleed a thick, dark liquid. You hear Carlos's mocking whisper coming from the TV, even though it is off and unplugged. You turn towards the mirror, searching for your reflection, but what you find makes your blood run cold. Mateo is standing behind you, with a bullet hole in his forehead, dripping fresh blood. You feel his cold hand on your shoulder as he whispers in your ear, "Now you are just as alone as I am, Captain." You scream in terror. You can no longer tell if what you hear is the wind or the screams of the souls coming to collect your debt. You run desperately through the house, trying to shut out those infernal sounds. In your madness, you scream your old command over and over, "Stop red light inspection." The hallucination pushes you out of the house, straight toward the dark road. Suddenly, you see a bright, powerful light speeding toward you. In your broken mind, you believe it is a divine sign. You open your arms wide to receive that light from paradise. Goodbye, officer. That's all for today. I will make similar videos in the future.